We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Lettermen Row. Go to lettermenrow.com right now. $1 for your first week over at lettermenrow.com, where you can read everything that Mick Walker is doing on the other side of your screen on the recruiting trail for Ohio State, because the Buckeyes are active. The last couple days, they've had recruits in and out of the building. First 2 weeks in March, no activity because everybody was either on vacation, on spring break, whatever you want to call it, lead up to spring ball. Now the Buckeyes are diving into spring practice, and they are hosting elite recruits. Mick, not going to waste any time. I am going to ask how you're doing. Happy Friday. Let us know how you're doing, and then launch us into what you saw on Monday as the Buckeyes hosted a few recruits on the first day of spring ball.
Yeah, I'm doing good, and I think Tyler Bowen's doing good too, because on Monday there was a lot of large human beings inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. You're talking about in-state offensive tackle Sam Greer, who's a four-star prospect that they really prioritize. Micah Champ-Smith, who you even made sure to come up and tell me about when you saw him in the facility on Monday, because you thought he was just a massive human being. And then you have a guy like Brett Kolage, who's from IMG Academy. I believe he's by way of Colorado. He's gone on and taken some other visits since Ohio State, but he was really impressed when he talked to Steve Wiltfong of On3 about his visit to Ohio State, his first one. And then there was a Pete Iglesias, who's a local guy from Columbus Bishop Watterson. I don't know if he's necessarily on the offer list right now, but he could be a guy in the spring or the summer if there's a camp or a workout that he impresses Tyler Bowen. So that's a name to file away. And then the final frequent visitor that was there on Monday is Deron Parks, who's by way of West Virginia. Now he's playing in Florida, and I think he's another guy that Ohio State likes a lot. And all those guys got to spend a lot of time around Max Riley, who committed to Ohio State last week and is kind of spearheading this offensive line class for 26. So that was the big thing. And I mean, we can talk about that for the next 2 days as well when it comes to the next two visitors' days on Wednesday and then today.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Monday's list was pretty good, like a good group of guys. There's a couple. I think there's a couple linebackers there. I think I saw the Storm Miller was there, right, on Monday. I think I saw him. I think I saw CJ Santa was there Monday, right? Wednesday. Okay, yeah. See, I'm even getting my days crossed a little bit. We definitely saw Micah Smith. If you didn't see him, I think you weren't there because looks like a house. He's one of the biggest high school kids I think I've ever seen. To be honest, he kind of looked like when I first saw David Sanders in person, I was like, whoa, like that's a big dude. And you kind of have to look up and you'll see Micah Smith and you're like, oh my gosh, like that guy is already ready. Just the way he looks. What did you see Wednesday, Mick?
Yeah, it was another day. Like I said, two new offensive line offers went out, but the big guy that was on campus was not really the biggest guy. Bo Bentley, the four-star quarterback from Salina, Texas, or Salina, Texas, however you want to say it. I know up here in Northwest Ohio it'd be Salina, but I don't know how it's pronounced down there in the greater Dallas area, I believe, is where Salina is located. So he was the big name on campus. I think Ohio State made a good kind of push for him. I'm hoping to catch up with Bo, but Steve Wiltfong getting caught up with Bo kind of right in the aftermath of the visit. He spoke highly of his time with Ryan Day, kind of getting to see the program. And then, like you said, you have guys like CJ Santa that came up on Wednesday. You have, Aaron Thomas, Chancellor Campbell, two 3-star offensive linemen that are down the board, but really traitsy when it comes to just, 6'5", 6'6", long arms, lean guys that you can kind of build up. Both of them left campus with an offer after visiting for the first time. And then the other big guy was another Texas native, was Brock Boyd, the TCU wide receiver commit. Not the highest ranked wide receiver in the 26 class, but Brian Hartline has seemed to really caught it, has a fancy for this young man out of South Lake Carroll. And he was the easiest spot because he has the bleach blonde hair that I think a lot of people remember from the Quinn Ewers recruitment. He made his first trip up to Ohio State, seemed to really like it. We had a story up with him yesterday, kind of just talking about the intensity of the Ohio State practice and the honesty that Brian Hartline brings to every conversation. So I think that those couple of guys, whether it's Bo, Brock, and the offensive line, were the biggest visitors on Wednesday. And then, like you said, CJ Santa, of course, but we might be talking about CJ Santa visiting about 5 or 6 times. And I guess we shouldn't forget Luke Wafel, either the 4-star defensive end from New Jersey, who Alex Bleitman caught up with and spoke really highly of Larry Johnson and Ryan Day. I don't know necessarily where they fit. His brother just transferred into Penn State this offseason, and he's visiting a ton of other schools, but it seems like they really have a pulse in that, really are making a move in that recruitment. And I think he's another guy that on Wednesday kind of caught your eye because he looks like a Jack Sawyer, a Bosa brother type of defensive end.
Brock Boyd looked like the 6th member of NSYNC with that bleach blonde hair. I'm dating myself a little bit for the young folks watching, and probably even for Mick. Mick's probably scratching his head like, who the hell's NSYNC? No, he did. Like he walked by, I was like, "Is that Lance Bass in the building? What catching Ohio State practice?" No, but like it was just a little joke I made because it was like it just stands out, and like Quinn Ewers, I think he had a couple teammates that did as well. I played or AYBT basketball one year, and there was a team from Michigan that I'm not going to dox these poor kids, class of 2015, school from Michigan. I remember the school, but I won't say because maybe these guys are Ohio State fans. And they all had bleach blonde hair. Like the entire basketball team bleach blonded their hair. And like we asked them after the game, why did you do that? And they're like, yeah, we figured we'd have some fun this summer. And that's typical high school stuff. So, Brock Boyd looked to the part of a South Lake Carroll good wide receiver. You watch his tape, you really like him. I think you will. But I just thought it was funny. He looked like the sixth member of NSYNC. It's been busy though, Mick. Like the entire week has been really busy. Whether we're learning stuff about Ohio State, we're learning stuff about the new coaching staff, we're learning stuff about some of these players that are there, but also just the recruiting trail. It's hard to still get a pecking order for where Tyler Bowen has all of these things because he's just bringing in so many guys, and the offers are just flying out. And it's a new philosophy with how they're doing offensive line offers. They used to be one of the most frugal in the country when it comes to handing out offers to offensive linemen. Now they're being a little more liberal in the way that they're handing those out. And I don't think that's a problem necessarily because I'm not sure how many are those committable offers that we talk about sometimes. But I do think it's interesting that Bowen is just bringing guys in and bringing more and more guys in to this fold as potential. But at the same time, that does make it difficult to get a read on where the pecking order is. All that to say, we do know the top of the pecking order starts on Friday. And I think that is where we need to go next because the country's best player, Jackson Cantwell, 5-star offensive tackle from Nixa, Missouri, right?
Nixa, correct.
Yep, there we go. Oh, man, I'm on top of it today. He's going to be on campus Friday. And this is, without question, the biggest, most important visit for Tyler Bowen so far in his young Ohio State career.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't met Jackson Cantwell at all. The last offensive line coach from Ohio State that met with Jackson Cantwell was Justin Fry, who visited with him during the January contact period, along with Ryan Day, which was Ryan Day's first stop on the recruiting trail after the national championship. Now Jackson Cantwell is going to get time with really no other. There's a handful of younger 27 offensive linemen that'll visit on Friday, but they'll kind of get to spend some time with Charlie Dickey and Marcus Johnson, some of the recruiting staff as they get the tour of Ohio State. But really, it's going to be Tyler Bowen, Ryan Day, and then, probably even Brian Hartline and Keenan Bailey and Billy Fester. Really, all these guys are going to be spending time with Jackson Cantwell on Friday. I think he might have got in Thursday night and probably leaves Saturday morning. So he's going to get a good 36, 48 hours on campus in Columbus, and that's a big opportunity for Ohio State to officially get on his official visit schedule because he announced that he would take an official visit on Ohio State, but the date was TBD, which is to be determined this week. And I think for a lot of Ohio State coaching staff and the fans would hopefully agree with that.
Yeah, it's interesting that a few of those visits are like set, and then there's other visits that he wants to take but doesn't have them yet. And I'm trying to pull up his official visit schedule as we kind of go on the fly here. It's interesting to me though, Mick, and I think this is what I wanted to talk about now is this guy, or this kid, I guess. This kid is going from Ohio State directly to Michigan, right? Or is he going from Michigan to Ohio State?
So he actually went Miami to Ohio State to Michigan. Yep. So now
Miami, whatever with Miami. I think it's interesting that he's going from Ohio State directly to Michigan because not a ton of players do that. And I think this is going to be interesting for him to get an after the fact. Like, to be honest, like I hope that one of you or AG talks to him after the Michigan visit instead of just after the Ohio State visit. Because I want to hear what the differences are. I want to hear what Sharon Moore tells him compared to what Tyler Bowen and Ryan Day are telling him. The last two national champions are going to get this kid on campus for visits back to back. And he's going to be able to see a one-to-one direct comparison without really, a month in between to think about these things. Like, he's going to see it right away, immediately, going back to back with these visits. I think that is the most interesting part of this entire spring, is that he's doing those not official visits, but spring visits back to back.
I believe he's done it twice now. His first visit to Ohio State in December was also the same way as I don't know if he flies into Columbus and flies out of Detroit back to Nixer or wherever he would fly into in Missouri. But I think that's kind of been his schedule. And like you said, it's probably the most interesting thing because he announced he was going to take 6 official visits, and Ohio State was among those, but there was no date on the Ohio State official visit. But then they're the second visit that he's taking this spring. So, like, I don't necessarily know where Ohio State would fit in. I don't know if they could bump one of these schools because I think all 6 of these schools are heavily invested in this recruitment at this point, including Ohio State. I don't know if
that's one way to say it.
I don't know if they could bump another one of those schools out when you're considering what some of those schools are probably willing to do. Like, I mean, you have Missouri that has already shown that they're willing to compensate and take care of high school athletes while they're in there. He's a Missouri legacy. Oregon is very much involved in this recruitment, and Dan Lanning's a Missouri native, so he's going to have some ties in there. And he's already visited a couple of these schools like Georgia, and I don't think Alabama made, but I believe he's visited Georgia multiple times already. And the Bulldogs seem to be really invested in trying to get him in the fold, which is not something they typically do with high school prospects. And then, like you said, you have Michigan, Miami, Ohio State kind of round out that top 6. And we've seen with Miami, they bought 2 5-star offensive tackles a couple classes ago. Not bought. They recruited him, and they obviously are now well compensated in Coral Gables. But they got 2 offensive tackles, Mario Cristobal and Alex Maribel, offensive line guys. Like, it's going to be a highly contested recruitment. If Tyler Bowe can get this one in his first cycle, in a shortened cycle, it's going to be very impressive.
Mick, that was a classic Freudian slip, but also, like, you're telling no lies. Like, Miami bought 2 offensive tackles. It's fine. You can say it. Remember, they also bought an entire defensive line, partly by just robbing Ohio State's class of an offensive line or defensive line a couple years ago. But that's neither here nor there. So the official visit schedule as it goes is Miami May 9th, Missouri May 31st, Georgia June 6th, Michigan June 13th, Oregon June 20th, and Ohio State TBD. Mick, is May a dead period, or is he just spreading those visits out? Like, what's the deal there? Because he goes May 9th to Miami and then May 31st to Missouri. Is that a dead period, or can Ohio State schedule one of those in May?
I'd have to double check. I know the Memorial Day Sunday, I believe, or is it Memorial Day? Yes, it would be Memorial Day Sunday is blocked off in May. So I don't know. Maybe that kind of eliminates that 24th, like the 23rd to the 24th weekend ish. You couldn't really do that, but I think they could maybe work in a way to get that 16th or the 18th like weekend of May, which is something that I don't think any Ohio State like official visits are planned in May, aside from the ones that we're starting on May 30th and they end on June 1st, which is just kind of the first weekend of June, is how many will view in the recruiting industry. There's no other visits in May. And the other interesting thing is I think many people would look at the calendar, and I was even a problem of it when I first looked at the calendar in June, but that last weekend, it ends in the 20th to the 22nd. There's most of the time it's been the full month of June up until July 1st you can have until recruit, but there's nothing that 27th to the 29th weekend. So like you said, it's probably going to be either bumping somebody out or trying to sneak into one of those May official visits if you're going to get Jackson Cantwell on campus, or you could try and wait until the season, which they got David Sanders Jr. on campus again, didn't yield the result. But if you can get Jackson Cantwell on campus for an official visit in the season when you're playing Penn State or Texas, maybe that energy kind of gets gives you a boost.
Well, it's going to be hard to host recruits at that Texas game because it's probably going to be a noon kickoff, much to the dismay of everybody. Whatever kickoff time Ohio State versus Texas is, whenever Ohio State decides to host recruits, they're going to be doing it while tossing around a pigskin. It's going to be this one right here, the Ohio State official game ball from the college ball playoff. The Buckeyes won the national championship using this ball. Not this exact ball, but this, like the specs, the way that it feels, the way that it throws, the grip on it. I was tossing it around yesterday while I was watching the NCAA tournament. It's got the great fractal swoosh. It's got the college ball playoff logo and the Ohio State logo down here. It's great. Job security, ball security, they tie hand in hand. That's why I always keep it high and tight, and I only keep this one high and tight because this is the official game ball from Ohio State's national championship run. Go to biggameusa.com/Buckeyes. Own yours today. It's got the premium leather. It's the exact specification that the Buckeyes send in and try to get from Nike for all of their footballs. This one's the national championship edition, and you can own it today after the Buckeyes won the national championship. Go to biggameusa.com/Buckeyes. Get your hands on one of those footballs today. Mick, if there's one school that you think that they could bump out of an official visit spot, do you think there's a lean there, or do you think that he's pretty set here? I don't hear Georgia nearly as much as I hear like Michigan, Ohio State, Missouri. I know why Miami's on that list, and that's fine. Do you think that there's a possibility that one of these schools could get bumped on these visits? Because like the first part of this video was definitely just we're talking about who visited. The second part is like, okay, the number one overall player in the country is in Columbus. What does that mean? So I really just want the rest of this to be like the Jackson Cantwell show, because I think it's important enough to do that. Because I think they need to get this visit scheduled. But at the same time, Mick, I also like that they didn't schedule the official visit until he meets Tyler Bowen.
Yeah. When it comes to trying to get in, like bumping, like I said, I think all 5 schools that have one on the books are really invested in this recruitment. Even Georgia, who has traditionally not been the highest spender when it comes to high school recruiting, I think they're going to be willing to go a pretty far extent to get a guy like Jackson Cantwell on campus. So, and he's visited there multiple times. Yeah, I think the opportunity to play in the SEC is something that really like he's really excited about. Then you have Missouri, who hometown, his father went there through track and field there. That's another thing that we probably should factor in. I think he wants to try and throw a shot put and discus in college because he's one of the best. And it's actually, I believe, CJ Santa told me this. It's Jackson Cantwell and CJ Santa are the 2 best shot put and discus throwers in the junior class. But there's a vast size difference. There's probably about 6 inches and about 70 pounds in a difference between them. But those 2 guys are the best in the 2026 class. But regardless, I don't see a way that many of these schools get bumped. Maybe Miami, but it seemed like he really enjoyed that recent visit he took, which probably kind of cements them getting in there. So again, it's probably either getting in that May weekend, or it's trying to get it in during the season, which again could be possible. I think he might be committed by then, just knowing kind of how Jackson's talked about his recruitment. But if he's committed, I mean, there's no reason you can't break out the spatula during the season.
Ooh, spatula season. It's quickly approaching. I think spatula season might come early this year. I think it's going to be like June, July. Much rather than we'll see. I don't know, but I love when Steve Wiltfong starts diving into spatula season. That's probably my best, the best form of Wiltfong that we have, and maybe you'll start to join him there because you guys work together now. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mick, anything else from Friday? The Buckeyes are on the practice field as we speak right now on Friday morning. We're not there, obviously. They don't let us in every single day. So, is there anything else that you've got your eye on Friday that who the Buckeyes are hosting, anything like that?
No, like I said, it's a younger group of offensive linemen, some 27s, 28s, and guys they haven't offered. Probably just preliminary visits right now. The bigger thing I did want to touch on and circle back to, because we talked a lot about the 26 offensive linemen that I've kind of visited this week and the 26 prospects, but there was a handful of 27s that they really liked on campus. I think Keenan Bailey loves Brock Williams, the 27 tight end out of Libertyville, Illinois. He was on campus on Monday for the first visit. I think he'll probably be back in April. Jimmy Callis, who is Alex Letterman has confirmed is the younger half brother of former Michigan offensive lineman Kyle Callis, was at Ohio State on Monday, and he got offered. That's one that, even being he's from Pittsburgh Central Catholic over there on the west coast of the western side of Pennsylvania. I think that's the offer that Jimmy wanted over even like a Penn State or Michigan or anything. His mom and I think he has a sister that have all kind of attended Ohio State or grew up Ohio State fans. So that was a big one for Jimmy. I expect him to fully be an offensive top target for Tyler Bowen in the 27 class. And then you have Amari Irvin, who's the son of former Michigan State running back Cedric Irvin, who visited for the first time on Monday as well. He's a shorter linebacker, and I think Ohio State wants to see him get bigger. But he's going to be a guy that James Laurinaitis is hot after in the 27 class. And then Munshawn Sales is another 27 guy that we should probably touch on. He's a wide receiver from Indianapolis, Lawrence Central. He's about 6'3", 180 pounds. I was talking to his trainer, Jameel Smith, who's worked with a lot of guys out of Indianapolis. And it's a pretty standard case of Brian Hartline recruiting here. It's Brian Hartline 101 really is what it is. If you want to be a wide receiver that earns an offer from Ohio State, you got to camp. Whether it's you run a 40 and that's all you do, I mean, you have to come out and at least show that you're being willing to compete. So I think this is a guy that we might earmark for an offer in the summer, but it's not going to happen until one of these first June camps. So those like 4 or 5 27 prospects are all worth mentioning. And then there's even more guys we didn't touch on. We didn't touch on Donovan Webb or Jordan Thomas, some of these DBs that visited for the Monday practice. It was a loaded week, so trying to kind of catch it all in one breath was difficult. But offensive linemen, defensive backs, and top 27 targets are kind of the 3 groups of how to break this down. And then you include Bo Bentley and Brock Boyd as some Texans that their Ohio State's trying to stay with.
Well, I think the reason that we don't talk about defensive back recruiting is almost the same way we don't talk about wide receiver recruiting. You just think like, okay, Hartline's got this. Like, it's fine. It's fine. Chris Henry Jr., Jadon Ricketts, he'll find another one. It's fine. And they'll hold on to these guys. Like that, it's just what you expect. And at this point, with Tim Walton, other than with the Elbert Hill recruitment, because it's something that we have to keep talking about. With Tim Walton, I just think that there comes a point where it's like, okay, he's got this. It's fine. Don't you agree though? Like they're
Yeah.
Jordan Thomas, Donovan Webb. Like I think Jordan Thomas is going to be in the class, and he visited on a Monday. That's a huge deal. But at the same time, like okay, Tim Walton's going to go get his guys, and it's going to be fine. And I think that's just maybe that's taking it for granted a little bit, like we do with Brian Hartline, because I think we do that with Brian Hartline. But also, like if you know that they're going to be fine and they're going to be good and they're going to get the guys that they need, you don't really have to worry about it on the trail as much as with these offensive linemen, where like we haven't seen them have as much success on the recruiting trail, and so now we have to track everybody who visits, on the offensive line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's definitely a trust factor with not only Tim Walton but Matt Guerrero. Like I think there's a reason why Ohio State fought to kind of get Caden Gebhardt from Olentangy, but we're not all together the most frustrated when he committed to Clemson, because I think they really like Donovan Webb out of Frisco Panther Creek High School. I mean, he's posted about all the visits he's taken recently, posted about Ohio State, and he tags the Ohio State Twitter account, he tags the Letterman Row Twitter account, because he's that much of an Ohio State. He has that much of an attention towards Ohio State that he knows some of the media members already. Then you like with Jordan Thomas, it's tough because I think there's some other schools, whether it's Auburn, Michigan, some of these maybe NIL schools that are trying to pay more money for high school prospects are really invested in trying to get Jordan to campus. But I think there's also a connection he has with Tim Walton and his mom Mia and his father, who was with him on a Monday. Like there's just a connection. He spent almost the entire practice with Sam Petito, the former Alabama assistant that's now the Ohio State director of player personnel. Like I think they put a kind of a full court press, and I think you and I even kind of heard that after practice on Wednesday, that they felt pretty darn good about where they stood with Jordan Thomas heading out of that visit. And luckily,
Oh yeah.
I'm headed out to the East Coast next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon. I'm going to catch up with Jordan, kind of pick his brain about where it was. Alex Kleitman already caught him post visit, but now about a week after the visit, we'll catch up with him again, just kind of see where everything stands and get more feel on Tim Walton and where he stands with what he likes about Ohio State and beyond the coaching staff and just even that recent visit.
All right, Mick, I've got to do one more thing since we're talking recruiting. You famously, I guess infamously, if it's the rival school of somebody who's watching, wear a different high school, and it's weird because I'm doing this and you're not doing it today. Most of the time, you wear a different high school's shirt every time we come on to talk about Ohio State or recruiting or anything. If we talked about life, I think you would wear a different high school shirt because you like to shout out some of the high schools around the state of Ohio. Why do you do that? Explain to the people. And how many different high schools could you rep from your wardrobe?
Yeah, so I do it primarily because a lot of these coaches are great. Whenever I stop by, they're like, "Hey, thanks for making the trip out, free gear," and then just toss me a T-shirt. And I tell everybody, and I'll open statement here: if you give me any kind of gear, it will appear on this Letterman Live, Letterman Lounge podcast type of network that we have here. I just enjoy wearing it. What'd you say?
There's a couple exceptions.
A couple exceptions. Some of those Northwest Ohio schools that Spencer has kind of shut down. I'll still rep you guys, and one school in particular even gave my wife some gear, and she's very much still reps them when we're at home. But I just do it because I love my Ohio high school. Like to an extent, I feel like my job is just an extension of being a Ohio high school football coach in some ways. So that's why I have a lot of respect for those guys that kick me some gear. It's easy enough to wear, and also when it comes to the pure number between shirts, hoodies, long sleeve things, there's behind this laptop, there's a closet in this office that has probably about 40 or so shirts, maybe 30, around 30-ish schools. There's a couple schools that I visit yearly, so they'll kick me something new every year. But I mean, we're talking hoodies, we're talking Texas, Georgia, different states of different places. But yeah, we'll have more stuff on. And when we get into T-shirts, which we've gotten into the past couple of weeks, we can change those just about every episode, and it'll be different.
I know an equipment manager loves to see Mick Walker coming.
We're doing
like some of these programs, you're only going to get an Ohio State caliber player, or even my bad, I dropped the football. Playing with the football today. Some of these schools you get like they're only going to get an Ohio State caliber player, or even like a Purdue caliber player when you've covered Purdue once every 20, 30 years. And so it's cool that they get some publicity here. And I don't think that it's you doing like any favors for any of these guys, because you're talking to a coach based on Ohio State's interest in him. You're talking to a player based on Ohio State's interest in him. Like, you're not, impermissible benefits, if you will, put it into recruiting terms. It's more just like, hey, I'm here to visit. I might as well have a T-shirt. I used to have T-shirts from all over Northwest Ohio high schools when I was in high school. Just grabbing T-shirts from just wherever, except for a few that I will not wear and we will not see on this show. But that's okay. Mick has him in his closet, but you don't get to see him on the show because there's some deep, deep Northwest Ohio ties to my blood. And we just don't allow some certain things around where I come from. So we're just not going to wear certain places, but that's okay. That's the fun of it. I just wanted to get that out. I think it's a great little way for you to support Ohio high school football because you do, and we do, and Ohio State does in a big way. That's why the Buckeyes are hosting not just players from across the state, but they'll bring in full programs for different practices to let high school players watch the way this program practices. The national champions are back on the practice field. It is now toward the end of May, and the Buckeyes are back on the practice field for spring practice. They're in practice numero tres right now, number 3, almost in the books for the defending national champs, Mick Walker and Spencer Holbrook. We're not allowed in there, but that's okay because we got to watch a little bit of the first 2 practices. There's full coverage of that over at lettermenrow.com. Go there right now, $1 for your first week. And then we'll talk about pricing after that. $1 for your first week over at lettermenrow.com. Mick's going to head to the East Coast. I'm going to get back to work. We'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com. Like the video below, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com.